For the first time in Asia, connect your landphone and smartphone through SLT Wi-Fi with the SLT Voice app.
Tonight, even UNHRC sees it. Sri Lanka's disarray highlighted at the UNHRC.
The lack of a unified approach between the President and government regarding key human rights concerns risk adverse impacts.
It's a success. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe lauds government's reconciliation efforts, while the Speaker laments the political culture. The US denies talks of anti-US sentiments led to Pompeo's Sri Lanka visit being scrapped.
Due to scheduling conflicts during the Secretary's visit to this region, he is unable to visit Sri Lanka as we had announced.
A gem waiting to be pried. Overtures on Jaffna's potential as calls for private sector to visit the peninsula.
It's untapped potential. These areas need investments, corporations to take it forward.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Tuesday, the 25th of June 2019.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
මුහුණ සති කීපයකට කලින් Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා ෆෑනස් වැඩි වෙලා.
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ ෆෑනස් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක වැඩි කරගන්න. Fair and Lovely men anti marks cream.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Kanaka. Let's take you straight to our local stories. Now, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo cancelled a planned visit to Sri Lanka due this week, citing scheduling conflicts. But a news media report cast sizable doubt over the cited reason, saying Pompeo's decision to cancel his visit to Colombo has more to do with rising local sentiments against a proposed American military base in Sri Lanka than scheduling issues. Referring to sources in Colombo, an Indian media report said that members of President Maithripala Sirisena's Sri Lanka Freedom Party are opposed to the presence of any American troops or base in the island nation, and the rising sentiment against US plans is understood to have shaped Pompeo's decision to cancel the Sri Lanka leg of the visit. Pompeo was to travel to Sri Lanka on a short visit scheduled between his Delhi trip and visit to Osaka, accompanying President Donald Trump for the June 28 to 29 G20 summit. On his agenda were discussions related to counter-terrorism, freedom of navigation in the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific region, and the use of $480 million American Millennium Challenge Corporation Fund with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Now, when contacted, the US Embassy in Colombo rejected any suggestion that there were other reasons behind the cancellation of the top US diplomat's visit to Sri Lanka. US Deputy Chief of Mission for Colombo, Robert Hilton, told us that Mike Pompeo, who is also the Chief Foreign Affairs Advisor, that is, to President Donald Trump, looks forward to rescheduling the visit to the island nation.
As we announced, Secretary Pompeo had very much looked forward to coming to Sri Lanka. He was going to pay his respects to the victims of the Easter Sunday attacks and to all those in Sri Lanka who were affected by that act of terror. He was also going to use the opportunity to underscore the strong partnership between the United States and Sri Lanka, which we feel is rooted in a commitment to democracy, economic growth, and a free and open Indo-Pacific region. Now, unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts during the Secretary's visit to this region, which includes accompanying President Trump to the G20 summit in Japan, he is unable to visit Sri Lanka as we had announced. Any suggestion there were other reasons behind the cancellation of the visit are simply wrong. He looks forward to rescheduling that visit as soon as possible. We can't say when that might be, but he is committed to coming to Sri Lanka when he can.
Meanwhile, the United States has downgraded its travel advisory for Sri Lanka, urging its citizens to exercise increased caution due to threats of terrorism in the country. Accordingly, the previously issued Level 3 threat advisory requesting citizens to reconsider travel to the island nation has now been lowered to a Level 2 travel advisory.
Yesterday, the U.S. State Department lifted the order departure status of family members of U.S. government employees under the age of 18, as well as the authorized departure status of non-emergency U.S. government employees and family members. The travel advisory states that terrorists may attack with little or no warning, targeting tourist locations, transportation hubs, markets, shopping malls, government facilities, hotels, clubs, restaurants, places of worship, parks, major sporting and cultural events, education institutions, airports, hospitals and other public areas. As the US relaxes its travel advisory, Macau doesn't see it fit to follow suit. Macau announced yesterday that it decided to maintain the travel alert on Sri Lanka after the Sri Lankan government extended the state of emergency by another month. The Tourism Crisis Management Office in Macau said that in view of the announcement on the 22nd of June, Macau residents have been reminded that the Level 2 travel alert issued to Sri Lanka remains in force. Macau is an autonomous region on the south coast of China across the Pearl River Delta from Hong Kong.
Now, in the meantime, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, expressed concern on Sri Lanka at the 41st session of the Human Rights Council, which commenced in Geneva yesterday. The High Commissioner, who was alarmed on increasing attacks carried out by religious extremist groups on places of worship across the globe, highlighted the recent Easter Sunday attacks in Sri Lanka at the session. She said that the lack of unified approach between the President and the government regarding key human rights concerns risks adverse impact on the effectiveness of the security forces in ensuring protection of civilians.
As international human rights bodies and champion, it is our role to assist all actors in the digital landscape so that their work promotes the rights, freedom, well-being and dignity of everyone, instead of damaging them. In the coming month, my office will be engaging with many voices across sectors and geographies to develop focused guidance on the application of the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights to digital technologies. I look to Member States and to the Council for their ideas and support. Mr. President, in this context, I also want to highlight my concerns about violence and the incitement of violence on the basis of religion, both in what is now known as the real world and online. In recent months, we have seen Muslim mosques, Jewish synagogues and Christian churches attacked by gunmen and worshippers of many faiths subjected to violent attacks. In Sri Lanka, I am concerned that the terrorist attacks 2 months ago have fueled increasing tensions. The lack of a unified approach between the President and government regarding key human rights concerns risk adverse impact on the effectiveness of the security forces in ensuring safety and protection for all. I am disturbed by reports of anti-Muslim attacks. Recent statements by some religious leaders inciting violence constitute worrying early warning indicators that should be addressed. While some counter-terrorism measures are warranted, the state of emergency should be of minimal duration and a priority should be given to bringing political, religious and other community leaders together to address root causes of all forms of violence and discrimination. In this context, I express my support to the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka for its commendable and courageous role. Attacks on religious minorities are attacks on all of us. One does not need to be a believer to respond to the deeply human values and human bonds which are expressed in religious faith. And while these waves of violence may begin with attacks on one minority, history teaches us that they are likely to engulf all of society. We must be more vigilant in the face of the hatred and violent extremists which feed off each other. But we need to act both with great urgency and great care.
Now, moving on with other local stories, highlighting the peaceful behaviour portrayed by the public in the aftermath of the Easter Sunday attacks. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe deems the reconciliation process of Sri Lanka to be successful. The Premier expressed these views during an event organised by the National Peace Council today. An awareness seminar on the framework of peace and reconciliation was organised by the National Peace Council of Sri Lanka today at the BMICH in Colombo. As per the decision of people during the previous election, no political party received the majority. This was a sign by the public, which said all political parties must work together in issues of national interest. Although we are making a genuine effort on this matter, it's rather difficult given the political culture in Sri Lanka.
අපේ සම්ප්‍රදාය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ බලය තියන අය බලය රැක ගන්න ඕනම දෙයක් කරනවා.
As per our tradition, those who already have power try and keep it at any cost, while those who seek power do anything to get it. People get penalised in the middle of all this. This is why our religious leaders keep saying that all parliamentarians and leaders must go home. I think it is due to actions of politicians who only think about their survival with a lack of vision that people have lost their trust in politics.
ප්‍රතිඵලයක් නිසා කියන එක මට නම් හිතෙන්නේ.
මෙතෙක් කල් ගිය
When considering how far we've come, I think that this reconciliation process is successful. If it wasn't successful, there would have been bloodshed in the country on the 22nd of April. The government has arrested everyone in connection with this group. Further investigations are underway, and there are also individuals who are not connected to the attacks. So, we've instructed the Attorney General to release them directly or on bail, and if necessary, take action on various other charges. On one hand, they say that the ISIS must be gotten rid of, but on the other, they accuse of Americans coming to Sri Lanka. Who else would help us find the responsible?
කවුද හොයලා දෙන්නේ?
Former Minister Rishad Badiuddin and Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake, are scheduled to appear before the Parliamentary Select Committee probing these terrorist attacks tomorrow. Accordingly, the Select Committee will convene at 2 p.m. at the Parliamentary Complex. The panel announced on Saturday that both Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and State Minister of Defence and 2 former Law and Order Ministers would also give testimonies. State Minister of Defence Ruwan Wijewardena meanwhile said today that he is yet to be summoned before the committee and he is ready to testify, considering it a responsibility. Now, Dr. Segu Shihabdin Mohammed Shafi, who was arrested for allegedly accumulating assets via illegal means, has filed a fundamental rights petition with the Supreme Court requesting to declare his arrest and detention unlawful. The 42-year-old was arrested on Friday over earning assets through suspicious means. It was reported that he is a member of Minister Rishad Badiuddin's All Ceylon Makkal Congress and had contested the last general election from the Kurunegala district under the United National Party. He was later handed over to the CID for further investigations. However, accusations were later levelled at him for allegedly performing illegal sterilisation surgeries on women who had their first caesarean surgeries performed by him. The case pertaining to erased telephone records by Perpetual Treasuries Limited will be taken up once again on the 29th of August. Meanwhile, during today's proceedings at the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court, it was revealed that the government analyst's report on the CDs containing the phone call records is yet to be submitted to the Criminal Investigation Department.
The case against Perpetual Treasuries Limited for erasing phone call records of the company was taken up at the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court today. The Presidential Commission appointed to probe the bond scam revealed that CDs presented to them by PTL did not contain certain call records, following which the CID was instructed to carry out investigations into the matter. When the case was taken up today, however, the CID told court that the government analyst report on the CDs, which was sent for an examination, had not been submitted yet. Chief Magistrate Lanka Jayaratne had then sent a reminder to the Government Analyst Department to expedite the process of compiling the report. The magistrate also instructed the police to present the progress report on investigations when the case is taken up once again on the 29th of August.
Now, Minister of Education Akila Viraj Karyavasam says that the Cabinet of Ministers today granted approval to provide free tablet computers for students in advanced level classes. He added that nearly 100,000 tablet PCs will be initially handed over to students and teachers in advanced level classes as the first phase of this project. In another development pertaining to Karyavasam, the minister has been issued summons to appear before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing corruption and malpractices in the government to testify over a complaint filed against him for allegedly misappropriating state funds when printing school textbooks. The Commission has issued summons to the minister informing him to appear before it on the 8th of July. In addition, the Minister Karyavasam has also been issued a notice to appear before the police unit of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry at 9:30 a.m. on the 1st of July. It is reported that the former Commissioner General of Educational Publication, IMKB Ilangasinghe, had testified before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry yesterday regarding the complaint. Ilangasinghe has told the Commission that the Education Minister contacted him personally to instruct him on publishing a statement followed by the Minister's signature and photograph in all school textbooks. He had added that an additional sum of 4 rupees was spent per textbook to print the Education Minister's statement and the photograph, and that 40 million rupees was spent for printing school textbooks during the past few years. We've got more local news coming up on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, 5 army soldiers were killed and 2 others were injured after an army truck collided with a train in Kilinochchi today. The truck had collided with a train plying from Colombo to Jaffna at a level crossing in between Kilinochchi and Murukkandi train stations. Military spokesperson Brigadier Sumit Athapattu said the soldiers injured in the collision were rushed to the Kilinochchi General Hospital. One of them is in critical condition. UPFA parliamentarian Lakshman Yapa Abeyewardena believes the best decision the president can make, with the presidential election looming in the horizon, is to unite the Sri Lanka Freedom Party with the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna to create an anti-government force without dividing the leftist movement. He said this addressing a media briefing held at the SLPP office in Colombo today. The educational qualification of the presidential candidate of the United National Party has plummeted down to the ordinary level examination. We think we will be able to put forward a candidate who has a degree and someone who has experience to take over the future of the country. The United National Party speaks about 5 presidential candidates today, including Ranil Wickremesinghe, Sajith Premadasa and Karu Jayasuriya. Karu Jayasuriya is convening most people in the country thinking he is the president of the country. He convenes high commissioners who should be convened by the foreign minister, and convenes head of security forces who should be convened by the defense minister. Such things had never happened in the history. The best decision is to respectfully approach an anti-government movement with the collaboration of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna without dividing the leftist movement. Now, the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, MP Dayasiri Jayasekara, characterises the 19th Amendment to the Constitution as a cunning ploy implemented by the United National Party to clip the wings of the President. Speaking at a media briefing today, MP Jayasekara went on to say that certain provisions were surreptitiously included in the Constitution without the President's knowledge. According to the laws of the Constitution, if the 19th Amendment was approved on the 21st of May and it is signed by the Speaker, it is then made effective. The President will then reach his 5th year of term after the 17th of August. This is a major constitutional error. Some can then say that the President's term will end on the 17th of August in 2020. If we go to Supreme Court, there will be utterances that the President is trying to extend his tenure and it cannot be allowed. If we really look at it, the President's tenure is 4.5 years. The President is not a constitutional expert, but we now realise that matters pertaining to the public referendum and reducing the powers of the President has been secretly included in the Constitution. Why? Because this Constitution was passed at midnight. We all know how the UNP changed the Constitution. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe will not allow amendments to be made because they want to complicate matters. It is true that the 2 leaders cannot lead this country. The 19th Amendment to the Constitution is a cunning ploy implemented to bring the President to power and clip his wings with the real power lying elsewhere. The Attorney General has requested the Chief Justice to appoint a trial-led bar to hear the first ever elephant trafficking case in the legal history of Sri Lanka. The case is filed against elephant trafficker Samarappulige Niraj Roshan, alias Ali Roshan, and 7 others. 36 charges are filed against them with regard to possession of 5 elephants without licenses and racketeering. Amongst the accused is an assistant director of the Wildlife Conservation Department and close relatives of Ali Roshan. Now, business and finance advisor Adrian Pereira highlights it is high time for the country's private sector to tap into untouched development potential in the Jaffna Peninsula, especially with regards to sectors of tourism, agriculture and technology. Pereira insists that economic focus on all regions and not just in the Western Province will have a positive effect on increasing Sri Lanka's GDP growth.
Jaffna, there is a lot of potential when it comes to tourism, agriculture and technology. Because a lot of brilliant students when it comes to IT, engineering in Jaffna. Agriculture, huge amount. It's untapped potential. These areas need investments, cooperations to take it forward. There's a dearth in qualified professionals there. We have to go there. Hats off to the government, they have done the infrastructure very well. And even this government has given some lot of incentives and funding. What are the private sector doing? If the private sector people take the initiative, the courage to go there, it can be done. If you look at the economics, Colombo, the Western Province is the highest GDP, highest growth rate, so we can be very proud of it. We give a step-motherly treatment when developing other regions. There's talent there, there's potential there, then the potential for GDP growth will be very high. I'm not talking only about infrastructure, the tourism sector, the agricultural sector, everything will boom. We need to take an initiative to take this MICE destination, MICE concept, conference concept to other regions also. It's a challenge, it's a risk. Colombo itself is getting congested. So we have to look at the blue ocean rather than the red ocean. Look at new opportunities. Then only the businesses can grow.
It is in this backdrop that business process outsourcing and financial services company Share Colombo Services Private Limited is organising a private sector-led conference in Jaffna for the first time. The conference on the 12th and 13th of July will be a joint effort with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Yalpanam, in which Governor of the Central Bank Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy and Governor of Northern Province Suresh Raghavan will participate as chief guests.
This conference is mainly for the private sector to improve and increase the dialogue, partnerships between the North-South and to promote Jaffna, the Northern Province, as a MICE destination. So we decided, instead of waiting others to come to us, we will take this initiative to promote the Northern region. The main focus will be on economics, skill development, digitization and investments. And let's see from there to take it forward. Jaffna, there's a lot of potential.
Now, the government is looking at avenues where the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation can synchronize with multinational lubricant oil company in Malaysia to diversify its product portfolio to cater to international markets. This was revealed by Minister of Petroleum Resources Development Kabir Hashim at a media briefing following the launch of the Hyrax oil lubricant blending plant in Muthurajawala yesterday. Meanwhile, speaking at the same media briefing, founder of the company, Dato Zainuddin, said that they are eyeing Sri Lanka as a hub in South Asia for their exports to other SAARC nations.
Sri Lanka has been our product export market since 11 years ago. We are very friendly with Sri Lanka. I'm a third generation Sri Lankan, and I believe there is a lot of opportunity in this wonderful island, and I feel that investment in Sri Lanka need to be done. We need to have more FDIs done in Sri Lanka. Yeah. You are never too small, sir. For your information, Sri Lanka is one of our major export from Malaysia at the moment, and we want to make Sri Lanka our center to achieve the 72,000 metric ton.
Will you make Sri Lanka hub for export?
From Sri Lanka, we will cover all the South Asia region. We want to tap on the SAARC so that we can get the free tax from here.
What is Sri Lanka's share of investment?
From our side, we are looking at it as, transfer of technology at a certain point and also getting into a competitive market. And as you see, the product itself is Cipetco is the one that's more prominent, and it will be Cipetco alone in the next couple of months in the local market.
Yes.
But once they operate outside Sri Lanka, then we would have to have a working arrangement of how we would synchronize with them in 20 years.
Sri Lanka's $2 billion sovereign bond issuance was oversubscribed by more than 3 times, receiving a total subscription of $6.2 billion. Sri Lanka sold $500 million in 5-year bonds and $1.5 billion in 10-year bonds in the second such issuance this year, and the country's 14th US dollar benchmark offering since 2007. The central bank said the 10-year tranche marks the longest tenor issuance to date in the international market and has been appropriately defined in line with Sri Lanka's future debt service obligations and debt management strategy. The final order book stood at over $1.8 billion across 165 accounts for the 5-year tranche and over $4.4 billion across 290 accounts for the 10-year tranche, reflecting a total subscription of $6.2 billion. 30% of the order for the 5-year bonds came from US and 50% from Europe, Middle East and Africa, while 20% came from Asia. The 5-year bond was sold at 6.35%, while the 10-year bonds was sold at 7.55%. Now taking a look at the markets, the all share price index fell for the 4th straight session today and ended 0.22% weak at 5,342.49, its lowest closing level since the 11th of June. Stock market turnover was 1.6 billion rupees, nearly 3 times this year's daily average of about 552.8 million rupees and last year's daily average of 834 million rupees. Foreign investors sold a net 174 million rupees worth of shares, extending the year-to-date foreign outflow to 6.23 billion rupees. We have Achyutan Srirangan from First Capital Holdings with a detailed report.
The secondary market yield curve remained relatively steady while the overall market witnessed a high volume with a successful launch sovereign bond with over 3 times oversubscription. And CBSL has offered 16.5 billion comprised of all 3 maturity for weekly T-bill auction scheduled to be held tomorrow.
Taking a look at the currency rates, Sri Lankan rupee ended 178 rupees and 28 cents against the US dollar today. Although the rupee is up 3.4% for the year, analysts still expect the rupee to weaken further. With that, now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies around the world. We're going to move in for a very short break, but when we come back, we take a look at what's happening around the world. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now seeking to regain momentum in his bid to become the next Prime Minister of Great Britain, Boris Johnson says that he is seriously prepared to take the country out of the European Union in October, even if a deal with the bloc had not been reached. The former London mayor is still the frontrunner in the race to succeed Theresa May, but his lead had been dented by reports of a heated late-night row with his girlfriend that led to the police being called to their home. Johnson said that he did not want a no-deal Brexit, but that it was necessary to put it on the table so that Britain could get the result it wanted.
Plan that will convince our European friends and partners that we are absolutely serious about coming out, because you're going to need some kind of agreement, and that's certainly what I'm aiming for, to get an implementation period. Of course, my pledge is to come out of the EU at Halloween, on the 31st of October. And the way to get our friends and partners to understand how serious we are is finally, I'm afraid, to abandon the defeatism and negativity that has enfolded us in a great cloud for so long, and to prepare confidently and seriously for a WTO or no deal outcome. I think the money is more difficult. I think the 39 billion is at the upper end of the EU's expectations, but there it is. It's a considerable sum. I think there should be a bit of creative ambiguity about when and how that gets paid over.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.